Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens confuse regular people as employees, and they are relentless. And in today's episode, we've got Karens getting embarrassed, getting yelled at, and one OP tells a story about the time a power-tripping sergeant tried telling them what to do, and it backfires so hard. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. So I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. I've had a run-in with a crazy customer before, but I never thought I'd have a story like this. For some context, I work in a large DIY retail store in the UK. More specifically, I work for a logistics company that manages their warehouses. I have to wear the store uniform, but I don't work for them directly, and I have nothing to do with the stores. On to the story. So this morning, I have my uniform on and I start my morning walk to the train station to catch my train to work, when I decide I have a few spare minutes to grab a drink. I'm in the local convenience store picking a drink, when some old entitled guy in a suit grabs my arm. The guy says to me, "What time does the nearby town store open? I need blah 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 blah." To which I say, I have no idea, probably 8 o'clock, but I'd leave it until 9 to be on the safe side. The guy says to me, "Oh, that's no good. I'm at work at 9, and I have people coming to work on my kitchen today. I'll be late to work." I respond, "They might be open sooner. There's the opening times on Google if you want to give them a quick lookup. Anyways, I need to go catch my train or I'll be late to work myself." He then says, "Where do you work?" I tell him I work in the warehouse in the other nearby town. That's why I can't help you out with the stores. He then says to me, "Well, I'm not going there. I'll give you a lift to this store and you can help me get the parts. I'll explain why you're working at that location today." At this point, what I try to say is, whoa, I'm really sorry, but I can't just turn up somewhere I don't work at and start getting stock for a stranger. But as soon as he hears the word can't, the guy interrupts me and says, "That is ridiculous. I've come out early, out of my way for this. You need to be more accommodating. You need to adapt to service your customers." By the time he's finished, I'm looking at the time on my phone. At this point, I'm afraid, and I'm just trying to get my drink to get to the train. I just need to get to the platform, and the guy's blocking my way out of the shop. So I put my arm to one side of him and I start to push past. And I say, "Yeah, I've got to get going. Good luck with the store." The old guy grabs a hold of me again and he says, "No, get your effing face out of that thing and you listen to me. You are coming to my car, we are going to that store, and you are going to get me those parts." Hearing that, I have no idea how to react. Like, is this guy trying to kidnap me? Is he really in need of something? I have no idea. I've been calm the whole time now, but now I'm just dumbfounded by this guy. I try to say something witty or think of something to defuse the situation, but I just come out with, "Get the F off of me," before breaking away and making a run for the station. The guy yells something I don't quite catch, and I just managed to catch my train as it was pulling in to the platform. Well, honestly, that was disturbing. And OP is right, like, who knows what that man's intentions were? Like, was he really going to take OP to that frickin' store a town over? Or was this gonna be some true crime stuff? That said, ridiculous entitlement though. I'm just gonna drive you to the location I want to go. I'll tell them you're working there today, and you need to get me the parts. Like, in what world are you living in, sir, where you think you have that much power? So I work at a popular thrift store in Canada. When I was on maternity leave with my little one, I had to go into my store to buy some more baby clothing, as he was just getting way too big for his younger clothing. So I was browsing some of the household aisles, hoping to add to my collection of weird and pretty pottery that I'd started, when all of a sudden I hear a smash at the other end. I looked at my watch and I realized that most of the employees who could deal with this problem were on lunch. So the policy is, if something glass breaks, one employee would stand at the break point to stop customers from stepping all over it, and another one would go get a broom to clean the mess. As no one was around, I decided, what the hey, I don't work here today, but I'm also not in any hurry. My baby's sleeping in the cart. So I just stood there, and my mother-in-law, who was with me at the time, went to go tell Cash about the break. Now, most customers were my regulars who knew I worked there and just had a baby. Some of them even stood there out of the glass to gush about how cute my little man is. And then this one lady who looks like a frickin' Karen comes near. I say to her, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'll have to ask you to come back to this one once this mess is cleaned up." The woman scoffed at me, looking me up and down, and she says, "You're not the boss of me. I'll walk where I want. You don't think I know better than to not step on glass? You don't even work here." And with that, the woman starts walking on the glass as if spiting me. So I calmly say to the woman, "Please stop walking, ma'am. This glass could hurt you. I don't work here at the moment, but I am an employee. I'm just on leave with my baby." I then motion to him. And this is when Karen gives me attitude and she says, "What glass? There's nothing on this floor." And she said that as she starts purposefully kicking around the pieces and then stopped to look on the shelves. The woman never even looked down. She then went to walk away, and at that moment, this lady frickin' slipped on the glass. I asked her if she was okay, and she screams at me saying, "Why didn't you warn me there's glass, you idiot? I'll have you fired and I'm suing the store." It's like she was doing this on purpose, causing a scene. And I tell her, "I did warn you." At this point, the supervisor and my mother-in-law showed up. My mother-in-law saw that I was in distress and she asked me what happened, as the supervisor helped the lady stand. Luckily, the lady only got a small scratch on her hand from the glass, and she screams, "I want her fired. Where is her manager?" Supervisor tells her I'm the manager on duty. She then turns to me and says, "What happened, OP?" As I explained to her what happened, the lady kept trying to butt in, but the supervisor kept holding one finger up to silence her. And this is when another customer chimes in, and she says, "OP's telling the truth. I heard the whole thing, and you can check the cameras to see for yourself." This lady ignored OP when she told her there was glass all over the floor. The supervisor thanks the customer and then looks at Karen and says, "So this girl decides to go above and beyond in her job when she's on mat leave, when she's a customer herself, and tries to keep others safe. But you want her fired? Lady, you're crazy. She did nothing wrong." Hearing that, Karen glares at me and says, "She's lying. She wanted me to get hurt. That's why she didn't tell me about the glass. I'm suing this store." And here's a note. The glass was bright green, like you can't even miss it, like you could clear glass. Supervisor tells Karen there's a witness miss and we have cameras. She then looked at me and said, "OP, go rest up in the break room. Your mom can go with you too." So from there, I just thanked her and I went to the break room. I don't know what happened to the lady, but I was given a $20 gift card as a thanks for going above and beyond and doing my job, even when I didn't work there. My coworkers told me that when I was in the back, the woman threw a fit, wanting police to be called and saying over and over that she was going to sue the store. When I left the break room, she and the mess were nowhere to be seen. No police ever showed up, nor did we ever get a complaint. Okay, I have no idea what the heck that lady was on because she made no sense at all. Like, was she trying to get her to sue the store? I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to say. First, there's no glass on the floor, but let's kick it around. And then, oh, there's glass on the floor. I slipped. Why didn't you tell me? Now I'm going to sue you and get you fired. Like, make up your mind, Karen. Again, was she trying to, on purpose, get some sort of a lawsuit going? Who knows? Recently, I've become addicted to the little authentic Asian restaurants in my neighborhood. I also found that I adored Japanese hot pot, also known as shabu shabu. Now, the owners of my local shabu shabu place are a lovely older generation couple in their 60s. They also don't speak very much English. They do speak Korean and Japanese fluently, as the wife's from Korea and the husband is from Japan. This becomes important. I don't speak fluent Japanese, and I speak no Korean. So that said, I love eating there. I go about once every 2 weeks, and I definitely will pick this place over all the other ones around. I love that it's fresh, and that I've gotten to know the owner's sisters and kids pretty well. Food is truly a universal language for us and most of the neighborhood. Now, while this place is authentic, that also means a majority of their customers come in because they know exactly what they want and when. This place is mainly a self-serve kind of thing, and the place is basically a seat yourself after you inform people you're there. So I went yesterday with my mom, and we really enjoyed our time. Anyway, while my mom's sitting eating her soup, I get up to hit the buffet to get some rice. I'm making my bowl when the wild Karen and her kid, who's about 12 to 14 years of age, enters through the front door. I start taking my time, picking out a topping for the rice, and that's when Karen begins making a huffing noise. I just shrug, and I finish prepping my rice before heading back to my mom, and I didn't know the wild Karen had followed me. The woman waited until I was moving to sit, and then she grabs me by the arm, and she says, "Where the heck are you going? You need to seat my child and I." I respond, "Oh, I don't work here. You just need to get a table and someone will come eventually." Karen says, "What kind of joke service is this? You need to serve me like you did this lady." She then points at my mom. Annoyed and not wanting to deal with her, I start trying to pull my arm away. I scream, "Lady, let me go." And Karen says, "Not until you seat me." It's at this point I tell her to leave me alone again. And Karen went ballistic and she begins to yell at me loudly. I just pull my arm free. At the same time, the owner's sister comes to stop her, and crazy Karen scratches down the side of my arm in full view of everyone. Not enough to bleed, but enough to leave a light mark. This is when the sister of the owner starts yelling at Karen in Korean, and soon enough, the entire family's yelling at her in Korean. Meanwhile, I just kind of stand there staring. The commotion did attract the security guard, who likes to park their car just outside the main entrance to the strip mall. The owner, then in broken English, had the woman and her kid kicked out. The woman threw such a tantrum that the guard banned her from the strip mall on the way out. When I sat down, my mother just starts laughing. I asked her why she was laughing, and she explained that during the confrontation, the owner's wife, daughter, and sister were using their Korean to name-call the woman, the most creative, offensive name she'd ever heard. When the owner's sister came with apologetic ice cream after our meal, my mom told her in Korean that she loved the food and show. It turns out that my clearly white mother was the only person in the entire restaurant, aside from the family, that spoke enough Korean to understand what they were yelling, and yes, it was all creative insults. By the end, after what my mom translated, everyone in the place was laughing with us and back to a happy mood. I enjoy this place so much, and I can't wait until next week. My mom and I are taking our family friend there when she flies in from South Korea. Oh man, I just love that plot twist where we find out that OP's mom was white and she understood everything that was said. And OP does come into the comments saying the reason her mother knew the language is that she was a retired Navy veteran who did 22 years of service, and many of those years were spent serving in South Korea. Also, OP did edit to add some of the creative insults that were said to Karen, and here they are. Apparently, the daughter of the owner called Karen a stinky, pig-chewing, dog-loving shrew, and the owner's sister said to Karen that she's a wannabe Barbie doll but can't do enough exercise, so she looks more like a drag queen. Oh my goodness, that was savage. So this happened years ago. My husband was in the army on his second enlistment, 5 or 6 years total at this point. He had been through a couple of deployments by this point. We were at a new base overseas, and I had just gotten a job at the after-school care facility on post. Well, his unit was getting ready to deploy for 6 months, so they were in the thick of all that. The chaplain was having a pre-deployment meeting for all the spouses to talk about the changes to expect while our spouses are deployed. From practical issues, to emotional stuff, to disruptions in routine. Bear in mind, this was back when if you were really lucky, you maybe got a 10-minute call from your spouse once a month, maybe an email as well. Letters were still more common than anything. Now, both my husband and I are pretty easygoing, and we'd both been through a couple of deployments, so I knew the drill. I knew what to expect, how to manage, etc. So I decided not to bother with the meeting. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic resource for spouses, and they would do a post-deployment one as well, to help everyone transition back to normal life with their spouses, but I did not feel the need to attend. A couple of days later, my husband shows up at my workplace, and he tells me he's been ordered by his lieutenant to bring me to the spouse meeting. Now, this was a second lieutenant who was fresh out of OCS, was not prior enlisted, and my husband had socks older than this guy's term of military service. And for those who don't know, a second lieutenant is the lowest ranked officer. They're basically the noobs, and it's very common for them to think they know it all and act accordingly. This guy was one of those. Now, I was highly peeved, but not for one moment did I blame my husband. I could tell he was annoyed as well, and I knew that since it was a direct order, he had to obey it. I thought for a minute, and then asked him to hang on a minute so I could talk to my boss. School was set to be let out soon, and they needed me there. But I explained the situation to my boss, and I told her I'd be back as soon as possible. She understood the situation, and she said that she would fill in for me until I could get back. So I left with my husband, but instead of going to the chaplain's meeting, I told him to take me to his building where the second lieutenant was. He knew what I was up to, and he happily complied. We arrived at the lieutenant's office. I knocked and went in, while my husband stood in the hall. I then asked him why he ordered my husband to fetch me from my job that I was needed at. The guy rather pompously said to me that this was a required function and that I needed to attend. And hearing that, I let him have it. I didn't raise my voice much, but I informed him in no uncertain terms that he had no authority whatsoever to order me to do anything. I told him I was not in the military, I wasn't subject to his whims, and while he may be able to order my husband to come get me, he could not order me to go to this meeting. He then tried interjecting at this point to say I needed to go so I would learn stuff about how to handle my husband being on a deployment. At this point, I nearly blew my top. I screamed at him saying, "I've spent more time with my husband being in the field and on deployments than you've spent in the military. My husband does not own me. He can't force me to do anything, and neither can you. I will not be attending this meeting, and you will not force my husband to take me there. I'm going back to my job, and if I hear that you tried to make his life miserable because of it, so help me, I will go up your chain of command and make sure you regret it." Now, the building wasn't full, but it wasn't quite empty either. Oh, and the higher-ups were in their offices pretty close by. They were also super cool cats. My husband might have been enlisted, but they respected the work he did, and he respected them. And this lieutenant had been getting on their nerves as well. So yeah, they could absolutely hear what was going on, and I'm sure they enjoyed it. By the end of my tirade, the second lieutenant was falling over himself to apologize. He was saying stuff like, "Sorry ma'am, I apologize ma'am, it won't happen again ma'am." He knew he was in the wrong, and by this point, he also knew that I would make a stink if he tried to make me do anything, or tried to punish my husband for my actions. I left, and my husband took me back to my job, grinning like a fool. I was pretty much enraged at this point, but was cooling off pretty rapidly. For a few weeks afterward, I was actually concerned that there might be a fallout from my husband because of what I did, but there wasn't. At least not more than the usual BS he dealt with on a daily basis. It was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. Like I said, I'm pretty laid back normally, but I will get steamed on other people's behalf. And the problem is, I almost never have the opportunity or the right to get involved. So having this opportunity was just golden. OP is frickin' badass, and I love how she embarrassed that lieutenant in front of everyone. Like, there is nothing more satisfying than a power-tripping idiot trying to throw their weight around and having it fail miserably. Like, the look on his face must have been priceless when he realized he can't control a civilian. So I'm bored, and I have got one of these to tell. I used to work at this Christmas wreath place, and I was in charge of cutting trees down and throwing them in the back of a pickup truck in minus 20 Fahrenheit in mother effing Wisconsin. Now, the work was fine, but obviously that meant wearing like 3 sweaters, gloves, boots, the whole getup. One day, I was driving to work, and I decided to stop by this one store I like to go to. They have really good off-brand Red Bulls, and I was going on about 30 minutes worth of sleep. So as I'm walking over, sleep-deprived, pissed off, a woman in her 40s cuts me off, looking equally pissed. She says to me, "Where's the graham cookies?" I just stare at her dumbfounded, like, hell if I know. I tell her, no idea. She then says to me, "Well, go get me someone who does." I respond, "No," and this set her off. And that was, and still is, the absolute fastest I've ever pissed someone off. She then told me how she's been there for over half an hour, and how her kids are waiting at home, starving, waiting for graham cookies, and how much of an idiot I was, and that she wanted to speak to my manager. And this is when I realized that this crazy woman thinks I work here. People at this point are staring, and I'm done with all this. So as soon as she stops for breath, I interrupt her and say, "Woman, I do not effing work here." And suddenly, her entire demeanor changes. The woman stutters, and she looks at me all confused, and she says, "Oh, I just thought, well, aren't you going to the freezer?" I respond, "What? I'm just trying to buy some drinks and go to work." The woman immediately looks embarrassed, which I gotta say, was pretty damn satisfying. She then says, "Well, you do look like one of the people who work in the freezer, so I thought you were an employee." I say to her, "No." And that was it. I just kept walking. And it does piss me off how she literally switched personalities as soon as she realized I wasn't an employee. That I wasn't someone that she could yell at with no repercussions. Retail is effed. That's exactly it, and the fact that the Karen backtracked as soon as she realized that OP wasn't an employee says a lot about her attitude. "Oh, you're a real human? I'm so sorry I yelled at you then." That said, I love how she calls OP the idiot when she couldn't find what she was looking for after 30 minutes. Also, Karen, if your kids are at home starving, maybe graham crackers aren't the way to go. Just saying. I had just resigned from my extremely stressful retail job to pursue a career in real estate. I had been sworn at, threatened, and treated like crap because customer service. That said, I had to go back to a store that was a different branch to the one I worked at, but still the same company. And here's some background information. In our country, electricity is prepaid. And in certain cases, a free voucher is issued on the first few days of the month, along with your prepaid voucher if you are elderly or receive government assistance. And this is wholly issued by the government, and cashiers have zero control over whether or not your free ticket will be issued. So I'm standing in line behind an elderly lady, and she asks the cashier for an electricity voucher. The cashier rings up the voucher, then takes the cash and gives the elderly lady her voucher. The old lady looks at the voucher and says, "That isn't right. Where the F is my free voucher, you idiot?" So by now, I'm steaming. I hate when cashiers are treated like dirt. The cashier explains to the lady that she doesn't control the electricity vouchers, and advises the elderly lady to contact her local electricity department. This is 100% the correct answer as per company protocol. The old lady now reaches demon spawn level and she screams at the cashier. The manager comes along and explains the same thing. They don't control the vouchers and she needs to contact the electricity department. There's nothing else they can do. The cashier is in tears by now, and this woman is calling her an effing dumb bitch and other not nice things. That poor child is shaking, and this is when I realize I no longer work there. So I don't need to appease this screaming banshee. And this is when I do something I've never ever done before. I scream at her and said, "This cashier has explained this to you. The manager has explained this to you, and now I'm going to effing explain this to you. These people cannot effing help you. You're a sad, miserable person who doesn't deserve the courtesy this nice girl has given you. You can F off and go home." Hearing that, the old lady couldn't believe that someone else called her out on her bad behavior, and she left. The woman mumbled something, saying she better not see me outside, and I laughed. I said she's welcome to do whatever she wants, but so am I. And I'm not proud of swearing at this old lady, but no way will I stand by and watch someone be unjustly abused. By the time I finished my transaction, both the manager and cashier were smiling. I know they were probably very glad that somebody could voice exactly what they were thinking. In my opinion, OP's a frickin' hero for destroying that woman and saying what most employees can only dream of saying to entitled Karens. As for OP not being proud of swearing at an old lady, you know, I think OP should be because she made everyone else's day. Like, if that woman has no issue screaming at employees and making them cry, it's only fair that she gets a taste of her own medicine, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitledpeople episode, where bad bosses are getting absolutely ruined. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.